Thursday afternoon here in early July, getting the last 6 months of the year kicked off. We are through the first 6 months, which is mind-blowing that we are already through the first 6 months of 2022. I'm going to do a couple of updates for you. One, I'm going to talk about how June ended up in comparison to the last 2 years, but I'm also going to give you a wrap-up of the first 6 months of the year and talk about kind of how that compared to what this year looks like versus 2021 and 2020. And we're going to look at that in both Muscogee and Harris County and then in Russell and Lee County. Once we kind of wrap that up, we will move on to Dustin Steele, our local mortgage expert, is going to be talking rates. And this is what I'm going to tell you. Today is going to be some real talk. And I'm going to start the real talk by telling you this. The top of the market is behind us. I've always said, because people will ask, oh, when's the market going to top out? When's the market going to top out? So here's when the market tops out. When you look back and realized that the market has topped out. So we hit our peak. I would say probably sometime earlier this year, we really hit the peak of interest rates, of buyer activity, kind of all of the madness and craziness. And so the top of the market is behind us. It is changing now. Everything ebbs and flows. Markets always ebb and flow. We're definitely on an ebb, I guess you could say. So as rates have gone up, it's changing circumstances for buyers. It's changing buyer activity. I will tell you this, the market is still good. It is still a seller's market. We still do not have a surplus of inventory, but what we are no longer seeing is the complete madness, craziness, just total buying frenzy that we saw this time last year. It is no longer. It is not happening. You'll see some pockets every now and then. There's, houses here and there where we get multiple offers, but our multiple offer situations now are typically not 20, 25, 30 offers on a house. It's more like maybe we get 2, 3, 4 offers, sometimes a little more depending on some unique properties, but not even everything is getting multiple offers anymore. And this time last year, pretty much everything had multiple offers on it. So we're seeing a difference in the market, nothing to panic about. We're going to talk a little bit more about that with Dustin as we talk about rates here in a few minutes. We are also going to throw around the much dreaded R word. Yes, we're going to talk about thoughts and feelings on recession because it's a real part of market as well. So if we're going to have real talk, we've got to use the real words. So let's go ahead and start real quick, just going through our market update for what June looked like this year and the first 6 months of the year in Muscogee and Harris County. All right, in this past June, there were 331 closed sales. In 2021 June, it was 422 closed sales, and in 2020, it was 306 closed sales. So you can see we definitely had a very big peak last June, which runs on par with what we would have expected based on current market conditions at that time. And we've backed off of that, again, at 331 closed sales. Right now, there are, approximately, this was as of late yesterday when I was putting the final numbers together, there were approximately 345 active listings in the MLS for Muscogee and Harris County. And in 2021, in June, at the same time, there were approximately 344 active listings. So you can see it's not like inventory has just skyrocketed all of a sudden. We do have overall more inventory, but not a surplus at all. Pending sales this June, as of yesterday, there were approximately 602 pending sales. And last year, this same time, there were about 608. So all things fairly equal on that front, year over year for the last 2 years. Now, let's look at days on market. So this past June, average days on market for homes that went under contract were 22 days. June 2021, it was 39 days. And June 2020, it was 62 days. So we've continued to see kind of a drop over the last 2 years of time on market. Average sales price for Muskogee and Harris County in June was $261,800. In 2021 June, it was $245,800, and in 2020 it was $210,400. So you can also see the substantial market value growth we've had over the last couple of years as well, which has been great for our market. The list to sale price percent, meaning what did it list for percentage wise to what it sold for. In June, it was 99.78%. June of 2021, it was 99.9%, and June of 2020, it was 98.19%. Now let's look quickly at the first 6 months of the year. What does the overall first half of the year look like as it has closed out as compared to last year and to 2020? So closed sales so far for end of first half of the year for 2022 was 1,772 closed sales. In 2021, it was 1,806. So yes, we did have some additional closed sales overall, but not a huge difference. We're not talking hundreds of houses. So, and then in 2020, at the closed sales for the first 6 months of the year were about 1,442. So again, we've seen great growth as we've looked at 2021 and 2022 over 2020. Average days on the market for the first 6 months of the year in 2022 was 29 days. 2021 was 37 days, and 2020 was 72 days. Average sales price for the first half of the year has been $254,000. In 2021, it was $233,600, and in 2020, it was $195,800. So definitely substantial market growth that we have seen in our market value. I mean, that's not disputable at this point. So again, all of those have been good things. List to sale price percent for 2022, first 6 months of the year was 99.18%. 2021, 99.64%, and 2020, 97.44%. So it'll be interesting. We're holding pretty strong on a lot of these percentages and so a lot of the numbers against last year, but you can see things starting to change with some of that. Let's move on to Russell and Lee County. Closed sales for June of 2022 was 166. In 2021, it was 175, and in 2020, it was 152. So we've seen like some good growth in that area, but not anything record-breaking month over month for the last 3 years. Active listings currently approximately 208, and last year this same time, there were about 147 active listings. So we actually have more inventory right now on the Alabama side than we were seeing last year at this same time. Pending sales, currently about 279 pending sales, and last year this same time it was about 334 pending sales. Average time on the market for June was 16 days. In Russell and Lee County in 2021, that was 24 days. In 2020, it was 73 days. So big difference from 2020. Average sales price for this past June in Russell and Lee County was about $261,500. In 2021, it was $238,000. And in 2020, it was about $204,800. List to sale price percent for closed sales versus what did it list for, what did it actually sell for. This past June in Russell and Lee County, it was about 100.48%. In 2021, it was about 100.98%. And in 2020, it was about 98.61%. So you're actually seeing a little less negotiating still happening on the Alabama side versus the Georgia side with Muskogee and Harris counties. Let's look at our total package, first half of the year, first 6 months. Where are we? where did we close out and how did that compare to last year for Russell and Lee County? Let's see. All right, closed sales for the first half of the year this year is about 894. Last year it was about 821, and 2020 it was about 690 for the first 6 months of the year. Average time on the market for this first half of the year of 2022 was about 24 days. Last year was 34 days, and 2020 was 79 days. Average sales price for this year, right now, first half of the year, we're averaging out at a sales price of about $250,400. Last year, we were, for that same first 6 month time period, was $214,800, and in 2020, it was $190,000. So again, substantial growth from last year this time to this year. And I like to see those good market growth numbers. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute with Dustin. List to sale price percent this past year, this past 6 months for 2022 was 100.27. In 2021, it was 99.71. And in 2020, it was 98.6. So that should give you kind of a good breakdown of what our market's doing, Russell and Lee County, and then Muskogee and Harris County, how those numbers are playing out. Let's get Dustin in here, and he's going to jump on screen here and talk to us about interest rates and kind of what's going on in the market, what to expect, kind of some good comparisons to really talk true numbers. So give it to us. Give us the hard news, Dustin. It's been a tough month with rates.
It has been a tough 6 months. So, I get asked the question all the time, where were rates in January? Where are rates right now? Where were rates 30 days ago? Where were they yesterday? Well, the answer for all those is different. They were all over the place.
Yes.
You go all the way back to December, January, most people back then were getting quoted something in the mid to high threes. And since then, we have seen rates nearly double. So right now, if you're looking at conventional, you're probably going to be looking at something close to 6%, if not over 6%, depending on the day. VA, FHA, that's still going to be in the low fives, depending on the day. And those do change from day to day. And like I was telling Kim a few minutes ago, I had a customer that I locked in last night. If I had not locked them in last night, the same interest rate they got last night today would have cost them over $1,000 more in closing costs to get that same rate. So
that's substantial. And I'm going to interrupt Dustin for a minute, because what I want to explain especially from a listing perspective, if you've got your home for sale, is this kind of thing really impacts buyer power. It impacts the cash availability that they have. It impacts their budget, like what they might qualify for.
Correct.
So, at interest rates 6 months ago on, a $500,000 house versus interest rates today, that payment is probably up a good, $700,
It's
$800?
roughly, I would say the same priced home that you could buy last year. Let's say last year you could buy a $450 for the price of what you can buy about a $315 right now.
I mean, that's substantial.
That's a lot as far as monthly payment, the change in payment versus what you can borrow. So people's
say that
budgets.
Again. Y'all listen. I want him to say this again and listen to what we're saying here about how rates impact buying power and what people can get for the same money that they would have spent on their monthly mortgage payment last year versus this year with the rate changes. Explain
Right.
that
So
again.
last year, if somebody were to go and buy a $450,000 house, let's just say December of last year, or even early January of this year, the monthly payment on that $450,000 house in December of January of last year and this year would be equal to them buying a $315,000 house right now.
So think about that. If you've got your house on the market, how your buyer pool has changed, how it has impacted who's going to be looking at your house. Because rates definitely impact buyer power.
Yes.
And that's probably, that's of course the biggest concern for buyers and for sellers, because it changes how people negotiate. It changes even oftentimes what a buyer is looking at, because if, let's say, 450 was their max qualification based on rates in December of last year, well, that max qualification is based on a monthly payment that is factored into their debt to income ratio. So while rates go up, their qualification amount stays the same in terms of what they qualify for on a monthly payment system, which means the price point of house goes down to accommodate that. So yeah, there's a lot that happens as these rates bounce around.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, budgets change. The amount of cash they have on hand changes. You know, just from yesterday to today, their closing costs changed by $1,000. They wanted to keep their payment the same. So it's very volatile. I mean, it's been all over the place, and it changes from day to day. You know, my only real advice to somebody looking is if you're okay with the rate, lock it.
Yeah, we were talking about that. Like, you know, the days of kind of riding it out and waiting to see, oh, you know, I don't have to lock today. I can give it a few more days. You may rethink that strategy a little bit, and I'm not saying it's panic mode by any stretch of the imagination, but don't be expecting rates tomorrow to be better than today, because there's a lot of volatility, and you can ride that some if you're careful and comfortable with the gamble, but there's definitely a gamble that's making a difference based on current volatility of rates.
Right. I mean, if you look back, I know we spoke before about the Fed hiking the rate, you know, and a lot of people always correlate that with mortgage rates. It's not necessarily tied directly together, but the same things that impact each one, as far as, you know, consumer confidence and inflation, all those things, they drive those rates up. And so anytime people are nervous or get a little bit worried, you know, you tend to see bond prices fall or weaken, and you tend to see interest rates go up. But you know, we spoke last time to the Fed, maybe two videos ago, they were going to raise it 3 times, and they were going to do it May, June, July. Well, we've gone through 2. The second
been a little painful.
The second one, and just talking about being knee-jerk, you know, the second one, I think it took place on June 15th. The 13th was probably the worst day that I have personally seen as far as just a jump in rates. People were nervous about the rate hike. Rates were going up at a pace that I had never seen them go up in a single day. I think that was a top 5 worst day ever in mortgage rates.
Yeah.
But the Fed rate gets raised on that Wednesday following. And then within 48 hours, they're back to where they were pre-rate hike. So
it's something to pay attention to. Like, it's not panic mode by any means. Yeah, the market's different, so we've got to adjust and approach things differently. Rates are not going to all of a sudden be 2 or 3% again. That's not going to happen. Like, we're not going to wake up tomorrow and this was all just a bad dream, and rates are back down to 2%.
Right. I mean, that's not happening. Those were historic lows. Now, that was the lowest they had ever been in the history of mortgage rates. They had never been that low. So when I talk to people that say, hey, all right, you know, we're waiting to buy until rates go back down. Well, you can wait, and that's completely up to you. But to think that we're going to see something we've only seen once ever again in the next couple months.
At least in the foreseeable future.
Right, I just don't think we're going to see it in the next couple months. Now, will they go back down there one day? Maybe so. But if you really love that house, I would buy the house rather than wait for the rate.
Yeah.
Because I do think at some point you will get a chance to refi, and that may lead us into the...
Yes, that leads us... That was a perfect segue into the next discussion of the dreaded R word, recession. Okay, so Dustin and I both get a lot of questions about, you know, are we headed into a recession? Are we in a recession? Recession. Okay, so I'm going to just clear up what my personal belief is on it. And it's one of 2 things at this point. We're either currently in a recession and we just haven't fully realized it yet, or we're going to be in a recession. And this is part of how the market always goes. When you see the crazy inflation, and like we talked about last month in the video, when the Fed comes in and starts making rate corrections to try to slow down, in this case they're trying to slow down the home buying process and the extreme of what's been going on, and it's working. I mean, it is. It's slowing it down. It's not dead. It's not anything to panic about, but it has done that. So what happens when they do that, they tend to raise rates to a point that historically then puts us into a recession, at which time the rates come back down. So this
Right.
is a very predictable process of what happens in our economy. It's historically noted. Dustin was sharing with me some great graphics on it, and I'll have him, when we finish this up today, I'll have him drop that graphic in the comments below if you want to see what that looks like, and I'll kind of have him explain some things.
We can do that. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, like Kim said, I mean, anytime that you see that the Fed start to hike the rate, there's been a couple of times in history where it has not happened, but generally, once we see the Fed start to hike the rates up, within 12 to 36 months, we see a recession. And now nobody wants to go into recession. Obviously, that's not ideal. But I think where we are currently with 40-year highs as far as inflation, things costing more than they've ever costed. I think it just has to happen.
Yeah,
I think it's what we need to reset, this market and get back to some stability. I do think, I don't think we're going to see things in the twos ever again. I would not be shocked if you did see, mid fours. I think we got back down to fours. I think that is very realistic. I think, even
let me preface
not overnight.
Not even necessarily this year.
Right. This could be the next over the next 12 to 36 months,
which would potentially be a refinance
right.
situation.
So if you're somebody right now that is locked in at 6.25, and you didn't pay any discount points, I think you're going to be okay. I don't think you have to buy that rate down to 4% right now. Or if you're paying 3 points or even 2, 3, 4 points, I've seen some crazy stuff. If you're paying that many points, I think you really need to have that talk with your loan officer. If you want to call me to talk about it, you can, but it really depends on, it's a gamble either way you go, but I do think you're going to see them go down. And a refinance is much cheaper depending on your loan amount than paying 3 or 4 points.
Yeah.
So I do think that there's you need to weigh the odds. You really do. And I do think
every individual situation is different, and we were talking about that too. There's no one blanket answer for everybody's circumstance. So you really need somebody like Dustin who really understands the market and mortgage rates and kind of how this all works together, involved in this decision process on whether or not it's the right time to buy for you, whether or not it's the right time to sell. There are just so many factors that go into it. But I also want to say this, when we talk about recession and those kind of things, that dirty word nobody likes to hear, it's sort of a necessity of market. It's always going to happen. So we just have to, again, we're going to have real talk, and we're either in it or we're about to be in it. But I also want to let you know that doesn't have to be a panic thing. That doesn't have to be something that freaks you out. A lot of times people's mindset about recession now goes straight back to 2007 and 8 when the mortgage market crisis happened and there was a complete crash, and it was devastating for so many. Recessions aren't always that extreme. Sometimes a recession can last as little as a year. Like, it doesn't mean that it has to last for 10 years of pain and suffering. So don't get too caught up on that word. We want to talk about it because it's being talked about, because it's a real thing, and we're not going to try to just kind of icing over something that needs to be discussed. But just because you hear that word, or we might be in that circumstance or coming into that circumstance, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden your home values are going to plummet to nothing and it's just going to be utter chaos. That's not really what we're hearing from a lot of the experts that we're following that are talking about the economy and recession.
Right. This is, like you said with home values, this was not an overnight home value boom. Home values have been going up for quite some time. We still have inventory problems. We don't have a lot of inventory. I don't see values falling like that. I know, and don't panic about rates. Do not panic about them. We are still below the 30-year average for a 30-year fixed rate. We still are. We're not over the average. Even in the years where they were 15 and 16% thrown in there, we are still under the average.
It hurts when you look at what your rate would have been if you bought in January versus now. So that's a little bit of a tough situation, but it's just the reality. And at some point you got to box that up and put it behind you, because it is behind us, and you have to deal with where we are now, what rates are today, and how that impacts your specific circumstance. And so we just adjust and make the necessary changes and keep everything moving forward for both buyers and sellers, because there is always going to be a need to buy and sell homes. Always.
Absolutely.
For a myriad of reasons, regardless of economy, regardless of interest rates, none of that, there's always going to be a need to buy and sell. And so we just have to figure out for you as individuals what that means in your circumstance. And thankfully, you've got real estate and mortgage experts right here who really track this information and can help you come to the best solutions and conclusions for your specific circumstance. So anything else you want to add in?
Don't panic. So, don't panic. We're going to be okay. We don't know how long the tunnel is, but there is light at it.
That's right. So, that's right. And just, if you're looking at buying a home right now, you've got to really be in close contact with your mortgage lender. Hopefully it's Dustin, so that you can have a good pulse point on what's happening each day with the rates. And you can't freak out about it each day that something changes. You have to just settle in and make a decision. And you may decide, I'm locking in today, and tomorrow it might go down a little bit, but then the next day it could shoot back up.
Yeah, I mean, I've had people that I locked 30 days ago. There have been weeks where I've thought, oh man, I really wish they wouldn't have locked.
Yeah.
But
you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know, you try to avoid risk, but there was only that might have only been a 3-day period where they had the opportunity to get something that was marginally better. And now we're right back to where they were 30 days ago, and we may be worse off. You just never know. You have to, like Kim said, do what's best for you. Try to avoid risk. Look at your personal circumstances. A lot of times the gambling, looking for a gain, is a lot smaller than the loss. So I would just kind of weigh the odds. If you love the house, and we can fix the rate later.
Yeah.
So,
excellent. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap it up now. I know you guys have a lot of other things to do. We appreciate you tuning in, taking time to watch this, whether you're watching it live right now or if you're going to be tuning in later today, tomorrow, later this week, catching up on the latest in our local real estate market and rates. As always, I will have Dustin drop all of his contact information in the comments below. If you've got general questions, you can call us, you can text us, you can email us, you can drop your questions in the comments below and we'll get them answered. Dustin, tell them again, what's the best way to reach you?
So you can reach me on here, comment section, you can on Messenger, you can text me, call me, email me. My cell phone is 706-405-6555, and I will put my email down at the bottom. So.
And you guys know I do all the same, all the ways you want to contact me, they're there. My cell phone number is 706-332-6349. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful Thursday, and we will be back together in August with Dustin talking all the latest in rates. It'll be fun to see what happens between now and August. But we'll be doing our August market update again, and usually around that first week of August. Stay tuned and we'll announce a date as it gets a little closer. Keep you up to date on what's happening in all things real estate. You guys have a good one.
Thanks, guys.